Welcome back to First Time Programmer. Today we're going to learn about your coding Swiss Army knife. That is called VS Code. So VS Code is an IDE, integrated development environment, and it's going to let you write basically any programming language. So right now, if you don't have it already, Google VS Code, click on the first link. Obviously it's going to come right up, and just hit download for your operating system. Once you do that, get it installed. Not gonna hold your hand on that, but make a new folder, open it up. I have a new folder right here in my home area, opened on Visual Studio. So something to know about Visual Studio. How can it do every language? It has something called extensions, which you can see right here. You can see which ones I have installed. You can search for extensions and install new ones. You don't have to use any of the ones that I have, but if you're going to use a language in VS Code, whether that's Python or JavaScript, what have you, consider installing an extension for it. But there's also a lot of good stuff built into VS Code for JavaScript, which is what we're going to concentrate on right now. So yeah, there's Java, Python, C, C++, Git, Docker, SSH. If you want to remote into another machine and use VS Code, you can still do that. All kinds of extensions available, very flexible piece of software, all of the rage. It seems like everyone I know uses VS Code, so it is the thing to have. All that aside, you have VS Code installed, good work. We're going to create a website. In the past tutorial, we just looked at a website and saw how we can change it live in the browser on the fly. Now we're going to write our own locally in a file. So let's start with that. Throughout this tutorial, we're going to be learning a new concept known as Emmet coding, E-M-M-E-T, and it is a way to write HTML very quickly. So first and foremost, hit exclamation point, hit tab, should be built right into VS Code to use Emmet coding. It sets up your document. It's already ready to go for you. You have your title, we can just call it home. We can say, hello world. Wow, we have an HTML doc ready to go. That's great. How do we look at this in our browser? First, just go to your system file browser and double click on it. It will open in your browser and you will see we changed the title so the tab has a different name. It has home. And you see our hello world text. Just like we did before, we can inspect element, and look at that, our HTML is on the right side in the inspect element window. What's the problem here? What if you wanted to send this file, this website, to someone else? You could send them a link and it's going to come up like this, file : / home Steve FTP3 index.html. It'll look different on Windows. It'll be C : / whatever, right? But it's a link to a file on your local system. Nobody's going to be able to open that because it's sitting on your system. It's not sitting on the internet anywhere. If you go to whatever.com, PageKeyTech.com, there is a server out there serving you files. So when you go to PageKeyTech.com/index.html, you're saying to that server, give me index.html. In this case, it's a completely static page. It just says hello world, right? So we're just serving static content. There are multiple ways to do this. There are so many ways to serve static content. Two very popular real enterprise solutions are Nginx, Nginx, and Apache, which are web servers. They're all optimized to do this in production securely, safely. However, most programming languages also have a very simple HTTP server built in. For example, if you have Python installed, you can do python 3-m http.server, and it's going to start a server serving up files out of the directory that we're currently in. So the only file there right now is index.html, right? So if we go back to our browser and we go to localhost : 8000, which is what it said it was hosting on, we get our same page. Pretty cool, right? No! Notice the index.html is kind of a special name saying this whole folder. If we make a blog folder and we add an index.html there and we do our little Emmet trick and write, I don't know, blog thoughts. Okay, so we have an index.html in the blog directory. If we go to our browser, we go to localhost 8000. Keep in mind this would be whatever.com in the real world, : 8000 /blog. And we get thoughts, so we get a different page. If we go to /index.html, that works too. We get our home page. If we go to /home.html, that's nothing. That's not a file that exists. If we create, let's do banana.html, and we'll make our page and we'll say fruit, banana. Okay, go back to the browser, localhost/banana.html fruit. And sometimes it works without the HTML, not in this case. Some servers do that for you, but in this case, we're just getting static files, okay? So I've driven that point, I've beaten that horse completely to death. Fun stuff. What else? Emmet coding. How does it help us write HTML really quickly? Well, if you type UL, unorganized list, first of all, just hit tab. Whatever tag you type instantly gets turned into surrounding tags, and you can just type text inside of it, right? If you want to nest certain things, for example, if you want an unorganized list with 3 list items in it, you can do UL greater than LI times 3 and hit tab. And look, you have your 3 list items, and you can type whatever you want in them. And if we go refresh the page, we will see that we have, well, we're on banana, aren't we? So we'll go to banana and we'll see. There we go. So that's Emmet coding. We talked about CSS. You can do that right in the document here. You can say UL background color green, and if you refresh, that worked. You can put this in a separate CSS file and include it. You can do styles.css, and you can take your style, throw it in there, and if we get our Emmet coding going again, if you go in the head section, type link and hit tab, it sets it up for you to include a style sheet automatically, and you include styles.css, still works, right? Okay, cool, good stuff. We've talked about Emmet, we've talked about VS Code. That's probably enough for right now. Basically, you know enough now to develop a website locally without any backend or anything like that. So what's next from here? Well, we're just dealing with vanilla JavaScript, which has been around since the 90s or the 80s or whatever. However, on top of that, there are many tools built to help you write it better and without repeating yourself. So, for example, on the front end, the client side, you can have things like React, which help you put pieces of code into components, right? If you do it the way that we're doing it right now with no help, all of your code is living just all interspersed together, right? If you have a button and you have a picture and you have a paragraph, the styles for those all go right next to each other. There's really no way to separate them out without being very inefficient by loading a billion files, right? Something like React will allow you to create components where the HTML, JavaScript, and CSS are all bundled into one component object that you can worry about, like a button or whatever. It's modular. It's very helpful, actually, to have that. That's for the front end. We'll talk about that eventually. The back end, we're serving static files, right? Nothing is changing about these files when the server sends them. On the back end, instead of serving the exact file, you can start to put templates into these files, like a variable name here, and then in your code, you can have back-end code doing whatever and inserting variables. That's a very basic example, but basically you can do anything to generate this page. So when you see people logging into accounts, for example, and displaying dynamic information, displaying posts out of a database, like if you log into an account, all kinds of background code runs to make sure you are who you are, and then it says, success, welcome, username. Do you think that they have a file sitting on a server that looks exactly like this HTML file with your name in it, with Steve, like welcome Steve? No, they don't. They use templates, they generate the file that they send you and display in your browser. So we'll get into that. React for the front end to make it modular. For the back end, things like Node.js. That's a whole can of worms, and plenty of other things that you can do. Once you get into that server-side realm, anything could be generating that website that's being sent to you. They could be using any language. They could be using Rust, Java, C, C++, assembly language to make an HTTP server to send you a website. So it's an exciting world, the Wild West. Either way, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. If you are new to coding, consider subscribing. If you're a current subscriber, you probably didn't make it this far. I don't know. Yeah, hope you enjoyed.
I'm not letting you eat the pizza! Give me that pizza! No!